Hello and welcome. Today, I'll guide you through the process of making delicious, sun-dried tomatoes right from the comfort of your own home. Whether you've grown your own tomatoes or picked them up from the market, this simple yet effective method will help you preserve that fresh summer flavor all year round. Let's get started. Begin by thoroughly washing your tomatoes. Now take each tomato and carefully slice it in half. If you're working with larger tomatoes, you can even quarter them. The goal is to reduce their size to help them dry evenly in the oven. Once cut, place the tomatoes on a baking tray lined with parchment paper or a baking mat with the cut sides facing upward. To enhance the natural flavors of the tomatoes, lightly sprinkle them with salt and pepper. For added aroma and depth, I recommend adding some dried rosemary. You can also drizzle a bit of extra virgin olive oil over the top. The oil will help the tomatoes develop that perfect texture while drying, and the rosemary gives them a beautiful earthy note. Preheat your oven to a low temperature, around 120 degrees Celsius. Leave the tomatoes in the oven for about 2 to 3 hours. You're looking for them to slowly shrivel and reduce in size as the moisture evaporates after about an hour and a half. Check on them, and if you notice they're drying unevenly, carefully turn them over to ensure both sides dry uniformly. You want them to be slightly chewy, but not too dry. Once your tomatoes have finished drying and they have that perfect leathery texture, remove the tray from the oven and allow the tomatoes to cool. As they cool down, you'll notice they become slightly firmer and more concentrated in flavor. While you can store these tomatoes as they are, if you're planning to use them in a flavorful pickle, we need to rehydrate them slightly. To do this, we're going to blanch the dried tomatoes in boiling water. Simply bring a pot of water to a rolling boil and drop the tomatoes in for about 30 seconds to 1 minute. You want to soften them without losing that wonderful dried texture. Once blanched, immediately transfer them to a plate lined with paper towels and gently pat them dry. Once your jar is ready, layer the softened tomatoes inside. As you add the tomatoes, include a few cloves of garlic and green chilies for added flavor. Pour extra virgin olive oil over the tomatoes preservative. It's important to leave a little space at the top of the jar, but ensure that the oil covers the tomatoes fully to avoid air exposure. Finally, tightly seal the jar with its lid. Ensure that the lid is secure to keep out any air or moisture. Once the jar is sealed, let it sit in a cool, dark place for at least a week to allow the flavors to meld together and mature. The longer you let the tomatoes sit, the more intense and complex the flavors will become. Perfectly sun-dried tomatoes, ready to use or store, whether you want to add them to salads, pastas, or pizzas, or enjoy them as a tangy pickle.